Hello, and welcome to this really important and really valuable workshop moving from anxious attachment to secure. Let's start with an introduction. I'm Carly Ann. I am a psychological attachment coach. So, over the last 10 years, I have 10 plus years actually. Gosh, when I really think about it, we could even be going into like our 14th year. But I have been helping people for a very long time to create change in their life. I have a background in cognitive behavioral therapy, somatic attachment therapy, and compassion focused therapy. And combining that, we're really supporting you to change how you think and how you act, especially in relationships. And that's going to change how you feel and it's going to change your experience. Now, something else that's really important, I guess, about me delivering this, and it's something that a lot of people connect with me over, is my personal experience. I don't feel like this is the be all and end all. I feel like the professional side of things and my training is very, very crucial. So I do really want to share that. However, there is this upside that I get it, as you'll hear. If you may already know a bit about my story, but basically, I grew up amongst a very chaotic childhood where love was painful. Love was really unpredictable for me. And with like going into adulthood, I had a really severe anxious attachment style. Many of you will know that that does include that there was some avoidance as well for me. However, I am drawn to talking and working a lot more with anxious attachment. So that's why I tend to talk more about that side of things. So, with a severe anxious attachment style, I have chased, I've lost myself in love, I've been heartbroken more times than I can remember. I obsessed, guys, I crushed, I repeated painful patterns over and over all throughout my 20s. Eventually, I got to this point where I knew if I wanted to have a healthy, happy love in my lifetime, like something had to change. And in this workshop, you will hear the tools that have helped me become the most secure that I have ever been. I am someone who had times, plenty of times, where I thought maybe this just isn't going to work for me. I now live in London with my amazing partner, and we're excited to be starting our family together. Whilst I am not perfect, I am secure enough. We are secure enough. And it is now my mission to help others also move from anxious attachment towards secure so that you can have a secure enough experience because that's all we need. We just need to be secure enough. Okay. So, what we're going to be looking at in this workshop. So, we're going to look at why attachment and trauma. We're going to look at secure attachment, insecure attachment. Then we're going to look at anxious preoccupied, the signs and how it tends to develop. And then, of course, and I imagine this is the part many of you are really keen to hear about, is the healing anxious attachment, of course, with psychotherapy, thinking about my background. So, what I really want for you is to be able to walk away from here with some inner knowing of how you can start to really prioritize your secure self, how you can continue, if you've already started, or begin to exercise that secure self within. Because if there is something that I believe, it is that you already have your secure self within. It's just that we lost our way. Make sure that you are on the wait list for my course, Becoming Secure. This workshop is designed to really give you an absolute kickstart. This workshop is here to help you if you are in a place where you're already having therapy, you know a lot about attachment, but you really don't quite know how to make that like that move across the bridge from anxious to secure. You feel like you've tried everything, you're still seeing yourself fall into patterns. However, for a small fraction of you, you're going to take another step with me. That's the way this tends to work. So if that's not you, I still really want this to be a hugely valuable space for you. Okay. This is also to share with you the next step that I offer in terms of my course. So make sure you get on the wait list for my course, Becoming Secure. It's an intensive, advanced course that takes you through everything we talk about in this workshop. So if you want that more structured detail, if you want somewhere that you can ask me questions, be coached, that we look at a lot of what's going on here, but you're going to have like an hour for each of the sections, so get on the wait list for that. I always start with an early bird price. It might not be for you. That's fine. Get on the wait list and find out if it is. But like I say, I really want this to be valuable for you because I know that only a fraction of you are going to come on to Becoming Secure with me. So for those of you that aren't going to make that journey, I still would absolutely be thrilled if there was something in this workshop that you took away that enhanced your journey, that helped you to know how to move from insecure towards secure. So, why attachment and trauma work? This stuff limits us. It blocks us from contentment, from happiness, from healthy enough relationships. When we are struggling with attachment issues and trauma, we are so limited from what our potential is and what we really have capacity for. And if we become more conscious, we can move towards secure for more fun and more fulfilling relationships. And here's the thing, you are designed for secure attachment. You have your secure self within, and you deserve to come back home to your truth and your capabilities. And that means to be secure enough. Neuroplasticity, because change is possible. And I want to shout about that from the rooftops. We can interrupt and rewire old patterns. So why stay in misery? Why stay chasing unavailable relationships? Why stay getting triggered and full of shame and arguing with our partner when it doesn't need to be that way? And personally, it is my personal passion and purpose that it runs deep in my veins to pass on what I know from both professional and personal experience. Let's take some time to think about secure attachment. Secure attachment is created when your caregivers responded to your needs consistently and lovingly, whether that was playing with you, soothing you, or simply being there and being present. A person's nervous system learns from their calm and supportive presence. Just your caregivers being there in that kind of receptive, responsive, loving state, your nervous system learns from that, helping you to feel safe and understood without even trying. This process of having caregivers that are consistent and have that nurturing care, it becomes deeply ingrained in that secure person, that secure child that grows into adulthood with that secure attachment, forming implicit memories that shape your sense of safety and connection throughout your life, meaning you don't necessarily have this clear memory of the nurturing and the soothing and someone being there. It simply just is. And as an adult, this secure foundation that has been built, it means that you naturally seek out and find comfort in relationships where your partner is available and is responsive. That nice person doesn't turn you off, doesn't freak you out, doesn't give you the ick. And without explicitly realizing it, you may find yourself unattracted to individuals who are emotionally unavailable because your early experiences have taught you to value and thrive in relationships built on consistency and emotional presence. So that emotional immaturity, the red flags, it naturally turns you off when you have a secure attachment. Here's some signs of secure attachment. It's surrounding yourself with emotional, available, and supportive people. It's walking away when something isn't good for you, even if it feels good. It's partners encouraging each other to pursue hobbies and personal interests without a fear of being left, that they're going to meet someone else, that you're not important. It's listening to each other's perspectives without just really getting stuck on what it is that you're hearing and what you're believing and what you're feeling in that moment. It's not automatically assuming the worst. If someone doesn't text back, if something changes in the plans, it's not automatically assuming that that means something bad is about to happen. It's fun, travel, play, it's exploring together, it's exploring individually, being able to make mistakes and repair within reason, of course. It's that conflict resolution, being able to respond to attempts at repair when your partner reaches out to you, offers that olive branch. You can receive that without denying it, without saying, yeah, but it didn't happen quick enough. It's not making mishaps and setbacks about your self-worth, about them not loving you and not caring about you. It's communicating without fears of being needy or too much. It's taking a breather and self-soothing before expecting it from each other. And here's the thing, if this hasn't got across already, you only need to be secure enough. On this journey and throughout this workshop, don't think this is about becoming perfect and never getting triggered, never reacting, never feeling anxious again. People with secure attachment are not perfect. You still feel feelings, you still feel uncertainty. It's just having that more space, more understanding, more able to come back home to yourself, having better coping behaviors in those moments. Insecure attachment. When our early experiences of love, connection, and relationships are insecure, it means we didn't consistently experience reliable and comforting interactions. Think of it like frequent disruptions in our relationships without enough soothing or resolution. And as you grow into adulthood and you have relationships, it leaves us unsure about how to relate to others. We feel unsafe in our interactions, easily threatened, easily expecting the worst, easily in a state of threat and risk. Our beliefs about ourselves, others, and relationships, they tend to be negative because that's what we've learned. We feel insecure about those things based on our early experiences. And these negative beliefs, they create what psychologists call insecure internal working models, which are like blueprints, inner templates, influencing how we perceive and behave in relationships. They shake our foundation of feeling safe and connected. And, when I talk about becoming secure, the course, a lot of that is about reframing and changing our internal working models to become more secure. Attachment theory, which of course plays a huge part in the treatment and the coaching that I deliver, suggests that there are different attachment styles that reflect your experiences. Now, today, what we are looking at is the anxious, preoccupied attachment style. This is a type of insecure attachment. Individuals with this style often worry about being abandoned or unloved. They may be overly dependent on their partner for reassurance and have difficulty trusting that their needs will be met consistently. Dismissive avoidant attachment. Now, you will likely know about this if you're anxiously attached because this is who you become preoccupied. This is often who you become preoccupied with, who you become obsessed with and overly focused on and lose yourself over. So, people with this style tend to suppress their emotions and avoid closeness, keeping love basically at arm's length. They may prefer like independence and feel uncomfortable with emotional intimacy. Fearful avoidant attachment. This insecure style combines aspects of both anxious and avoidant attachments. And individuals may desire closeness but feel overwhelmed or fearful of intimacy, leading to this like push pull dynamic in relationships. And the severity of this can really vary because sometimes it can be really, really chaotic in terms of your feelings and the confusions. And of course, it can be milder as well. So here is a post that I shared over on my Instagram. Common signs of anxious attachment. So let's have a look. And why don't you do like a little bit of a checklist and see which of these that you relate to? Now, I should say that this is a partial list. Believe it or not, the list can go on much, much longer. But are you worrying primarily and excessively about relationships? Are you worrying and convinced that your partner doesn't care about you as much as you care about them? Are you being preoccupied and thinking about a relationship to the point of obsession at times? Do you experience a fear of abandonment and rejection? Do you experience intense anger when your partner is not available in the way that you need? Do you wind up feeling extremely depressed when things aren't going as you want them to be, especially in your relationship? Do you tend to feel safe only when you are with this person? Do you experience jealousy? Do you experience separation anxiety when you're away from this person, being extremely preoccupied, worried, jealous? Do you ever experience extreme crying and intense physical reactions when you can't get what you need from this person? Are you ever neglecting other areas of your life, especially when you're in relationship with someone else? Are you doing things that you're not proud of in order to get close to someone? The development of anxious preoccupied. So, just before we go on and look at the action, look at the different healing methods that you can be using, let's think about how anxious preoccupied is typically developed. So, that mention of my own experience, right? Unpredictable, chaotic experiences, especially your childhood. It may not have always been really obvious. It doesn't have to be that there was this significant, clear memory, but sometimes there is as well. You might not have known when love was coming and love was going, that kind of unpredictability there, walking on eggshells. There may have actually been a real experience of loss and or abandonment for you. There's the possibility of your own caregivers being anxious. They had their own uncertainties, their own anxieties, and they would actually often spill over into the infant. Sometimes, if the caregiver or the parent was insufficiently attuned to the child's state of mind, and instead engages the child in their own state of mind. So you see this a lot if you were and had to be that adult early on. A lot of my clients talk about being the therapist to their parent going to them with troubles. And that means that you would have become preoccupied, become hypervigilant to their state of mind. As a child, it's about what are you thinking, what's going on in your inner world. But if that wasn't attuned to, if that wasn't prioritized, you would have learned to become hyper vigilant and to prioritize someone else's inner world, someone else's state of mind. And you often see that now, dismissing your own needs, not knowing your own inner world, but really trying to figure out someone else's. And we're going to talk about that more later. And look, with attachment theory, it is an awful lot about your childhood. It is an awful lot about the experience with caregivers and those younger experiences. It is really important to note that also things like culture, relationships later in life, critical incidents, traumas later in life also can play a part in the development of becoming anxious, preoccupied, and insecure when it comes to your attachment style. So, I really, really don't want to dismiss that. I think that's really important. Like I say, it doesn't have to be something really obvious. I've worked with people where they had the most loving family. However, either like mum was really anxious or dad was really critical, and it may have felt like it was actually quite subtle, that it's not something you really picked up on because he was also really loving in so many ways. So it's not obvious. It's not that there has to be this big T trauma. Sometimes it is an experience, it's a one-off memory. Quite often, that's not the case. Quite often, for it to have this kind of level of impact, it usually would have been repetitive. That's the only thing I would say, because for it to become ingrained in this way, it's possible that it was repetitive. But there might be one off memories that you do have that have had a lasting impact that do show up today. And, I guess what's important to say here is parents don't have to be perfect and relationships don't have to be perfect. We go back to that idea of needing to be secure enough. It's also a lot about the repair. So if you had, experiences in your childhood where there was lots of misattunement, but then there was repair and there was understanding, you may have found that, and maybe you wouldn't be listening to this if this was the case, but those people may well have still been mostly secure. So I don't want you to feel like this is about blame. This is about people being terrible. It's often about people's own past experiences as well. So there we have it. There are the background into anxious preoccupied. We've looked at the signs. We've looked at insecure attachment. You may have questions at this point, in which case I really do encourage you to get in touch. And yeah, let's go and have a look at some of the key tools. I wish I could share everything that I know here, but we've got to be realistic. So we're going to move on and we are going to look at what action that you can take. Okay, so something else that is really key to mention here is that these different interventions, they do tend to tackle different symptoms of your anxious attachment. So, different elements of how, when we are triggered, how the anxiety shows up in our lives. Okay. So, some of you will need all of these, and some of you may need to kind of have that kind of pick and mix mentality with it. So, this might not come as a surprise, but when we're thinking about your recovery, often where it does start is looking at your attachment roots and also acceptance, grieving, forgiveness. So let's start with the knowing your patterns. You may already have begun this part of your recovery. Knowing your patterns, this refers to your attachment style, your triggers. What kind of things is it that sets off your anxiety? Your reactions. Have you noticed a pattern in how you respond to certain triggers or to all your triggers? And your internal world. What do you experience internally when you feel a threat towards your relationship? What do you experience internally when you do experience being ghosted? We want to know your specific patterns. Now, this kind of workshop and attachment work is fantastic. There's a lot of common experiences. That's why I think community is so important. There is a lot of common patterns. However, you are an individual person. And what we do know is that the interventions and what supports one person, it isn't necessarily a one size fits all. And so, any work that I do, actually, whether it is a workshop like this and having this discussion with you, or inside my membership or on a course, I really do try to bring that element in to know that you are not one person. There's plenty of different people with different life experiences. There's different nuances across all of this. So, knowing your patterns is really important. The past is often present in your body. Now, we may figure this out quite early on in your recovery, or sometimes this comes up later. Really depends on how things unfold. But usually, what we do know is that there are unresolved past experiences that are manifesting in the present moment through your emotional triggers, through this current attachment figure, the person that you really, really like. It shows up through self criticism, the difficulty in letting go. It shows up in that real intense response that feels out of your control, despite the fact that you might know that your reaction is out of proportion to the triggering situation. Because a lot of the time, the situation may be seemingly small. Not always. Let's not dismiss when that's not the case. But you usually know that the past is present in your body because these responses, these reactions are very quick, very much out of your control. They're repetitive, and you have an inner knowing that it's not about this current situation anymore. Another part of this phase of recovery is often looking at the role of grieving and forgiveness, and of course, acceptance. Now, that is going to happen in a different order for you. It is going to depend on where you're at, especially like if we're talking about forgiveness for someone else. Sometimes we're not there yet, but we have to grieve. We have to grieve the things that didn't come to be. We have to grieve the things that we desired that didn't play out. We have to grieve for what we deserved and didn't get. There are many things we often need to grieve for. And when it comes to how we live our lives with anxious attachment, where we're obsessed with someone else, we often don't grieve what really needs to be faced. Forgiveness, actually, sometimes in this stage of recovery, this is about grieving towards yourself. This is forgiveness towards yourself. This is about acceptance around your experiences. I see so many people hating on themselves, giving themselves a hard time because of their attachment style. And this is about saying, and this was really important for me because I hid a lot of who I was. I hid my truth, my experience, my life. And there's many reasons for that. But when I was able to accept, I have lived with an anxious attachment, and that does mean that I've acted out in these ways. It does mean that I've done these things and said these things and ended a relationship in the heat of an argument, whatever it is. But can I accept what I've been through and what brought me here, to take responsibility for change, not to stay here, not to make excuses for myself? But that compassion is really important. I spoke to you about, I do a lot of work around compassion focused therapy. And what we do know about compassion focused therapy is that there is a positive link based on a lot of research between being compassionate towards yourself and your mental health. So let's take a moment of reflection. I want you to take some time here. You can pause me at this point and maybe just spend like 5 to 10 minutes journaling. The temptation will be to skip this part. I really encourage you. Remember, I was saying about that willingness, that effort. I really encourage you to go against that urge to just keep watching and not do this exercise and actually really take part. So, your reflection here is to think about a time recently when you felt upset, anxious, or angry. Perhaps you won't pick something that was too extreme or that you're currently in because, I'm not there to kind of walk you through that. And then consider what experiences from your past might have contributed to this reaction. And moving forward, is there anything from your past you need to let go of, accept, or even forgive? Just take some time, trust your inner knowing, pause me now, and take your time. The next intervention, for those of you that are already aware of my work, you listen to my podcast, you engage in the membership. This one, maybe you haven't got a name to put to it, but it's not going to be brand new information for you. So that's a really great thing. Now, if it is brand new information, take the aha moments and let's see if we can incorporate this into helping you to be like move towards secure attachment, because this is life changing. Mindful self attunement. This is a practice that helps you focus on your own thoughts and feelings instead of worrying about what others think. So take a moment to even consider, how much time are you spending worrying about what other people are thinking, doing, feeling? Mindful self attunement is about being mindful and paying attention to the present moment. You can feel more secure and confident in yourself and your relationships when you are able to attune to yourself. You don't have to give up attuning to other people and being there for other people, but we're going to add you to the list. So I'm going to look at this in kind of two areas that I tend to cover with people. So the first is this idea that I've already referred to earlier on, is this outside in orientation. So people with anxious attachment often focus on external validation, other people's reactions and needs. What are other people thinking? I see this when people, jump into my DMs and all the questions are about is the person that they like. What's their attachment style? What are they thinking? What are they feeling? What pain are they going through? And, there are, like I was saying earlier, there's reasons why you might fall into this pattern. If you had that adult role as a child, if you took on that therapist role really early, if your needs were not attuned to. When we look at secure attachment, we see more of an inside out orientation where attachment and connection involves self awareness and self validation. So, when it comes to this element of your recovery, this is really about starting to recognize your internal world. What do I think here? What do I feel? What do I bring to the table? What do I desire? And that won't come naturally, and it will even come with fears. So, the ideas for this one is to surround yourself with people, group coaching, community, and support with people that are interested in your inner world as well. So, who you date, who you surround yourself with is really, really key. When you look at attachment research, what it will tell you is this is why the group coaching, this is why, like with someone there to facilitate it that knows about attachment, this is why healthy community and therapy is so important. Because, say, for example, we are in a group together, we're in a group coaching. Let's take Becoming Secure, that's a perfect example. And we're having a discussion, and I am able to notice this outside in orientation going on. I can bring you back to that inside out. And the more that someone does that for you, is incredible for someone to say, hold on, what about you? But what do you need? What are you thinking? What are you feeling? Because that doesn't come so naturally to people with anxious attachment. So, really don't undervalue the power of self love circles and the support circles and community, and surrounding yourself with people who will naturally want to hear about your inner world and your experience too. Another element that comes into mindful self attunement is your attention. Now, which of these do we focus on first? Outside in orientation or attention? I wouldn't get too lost on that. If you hear the ideas, you can incorporate these both into your day to day life. So, the attention is that idea where there's a struggle to control your focus, often reporting that you're obsessing over potential threats, ruminating on negative thoughts, worrying about your person, and you might even be making attempts to stop thinking about it, which actually comes with its own difficulties. Just trying to stop thinking about things usually doesn't help our attention. What you'll find is that there is this inability to shift attention away from fears, to shift them towards positive or more neutral feelings and thoughts can actually sometimes feel near impossible. And this is a skill that we really want to help you to establish. This is a skill that I really want you to be thinking about. How can you bring this into your day to day life more? And you don't have to actually take time out, but I have put some ideas here. So things like regular grounding, mental activities, watching a movie with intent, mindful practices. And what do I mean by you don't have to take time out? Well, we can do this whilst we are walking to the shops. We can do this whilst we're in the shower. We can bring this into the things that we're already doing today. And of course, we can also carve out 5 to 10 minutes a day, even 1 minute a day, to practice attention retraining. It can be overwhelming when you hear this to consider, like, well, where do I start? Which ideas do I pick? You can tune in and consider what feels most relevant to you. What are you already doing? What's worked for you in the past? And if it is really overwhelming, do get on the waitlist for Becoming Secure, because we're going to do these things together. We're going to make a plan together. And for those of you that won't be joining that, just choose something. Trust yourself. Yeah, practice, experiment, have fun, and just know it's going to take time for this stuff to land and for you to see these shifts. However, let's also not undervalue the incredible feeling that can come from joining a self love circle, from going to that therapy session or engaging in a grounding exercise. We can get immediate relief. We can have immediate aha moments. And that's really, really powerful. So we do want that short term, like, aha, that short term, I feel like myself. That's really valuable too. Even if we're still going back into our anxious attachment, we still want these moments. They are so valuable. They provide hope, they provide potential, and they are beginning to rewrite those pathways. The next intervention to support your recovery is regulating mental reactions. So, this might not come as a surprise to you, and I just touched on this a bit already. That idea of our thoughts and how quickly they can spiral, and we can want to try and stop them and change them, but it can feel near impossible at times. And so we really have to start to recognize them. And your skills here will already be building from that first intervention, where you're starting to recognize your patterns. This will be more about putting names to it, getting more specific. So those mental reactions, they can come in different forms. You may experience all of these examples that I have. You may experience one more than the other. But think of it in terms of there is a triggering situation. Let's say someone sends a message to the person that they like, who usually responds in 15 minutes, and actually it's now been 35 minutes. After that time, you might find that you start to have mental reactions that feel out of your control. And I mean things like automatic thoughts. They've stopped liking me. They don't care. Something bad has happened. You might experience images. You might actually see something catastrophic that's happened in your mind's eye. You might see them in your mind's eye messaging someone else or with their ex. You may have memories come up, memories of when you've been here before and it did mean that something was ending. Memories that are in some way related to this. It might not be really obvious, but memories are there. And very similar to that, you might have flashbacks. And the difference with the flashbacks is going to feel like you're reliving it. It's happening again right now. And your mind won't really, well, your mind doesn't know the difference between what's real and what you're imagining. So just consider that for a moment. And you might be having automatic thoughts and memories and images and all of that together. And your mind doesn't know that this isn't happening right now. So, what do you think that does? If there is such a connection, which there is, between our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, what do you think that this does to how we're feeling in that moment? And then what we do? We do everything we can to make these things not true. They're painful, these experiences. So, what do we do about that? And that's often what people want to know is what do we do about that? I'm going to be fully honest with you and tell you that there are many different interventions here. It does depend on what you're experiencing, but there is an idea of what we can tackle first. I do think that that's really key to say as well. If it is like really intense flashbacks and memories, it might be that you do need one to one support because things might really need reprocessing. But you might want to give self help a go first. You might want to give courses a go first and see if you do have the ability to reprocess that. For example, in Becoming Secure, very carefully, we will be doing reprocessing work. However, I just want you to keep that in mind that if it is something really intense for you, sometimes we do need that one to one support, and that's okay. That's completely natural. Looking at the how, so you can see here a table, okay, because the very first step is always going to be catching them. So, a great way to do that is through keeping a log, keeping a diary. And I've given you an example here. When do these triggers occur? What is the triggering situation? What are the thoughts, the images, the memories? And I've gone as far to also add the boxes for the feelings and the physical sensations and the impulses, just so that you can really understand what is it that's happening. When you record this kind of log, it helps you to recognize patterns. It helps you to be more likely to catch these thoughts or these images when they occur. Now, the reason we want to do that is because if you look at this arrow along here, the left-hand side, we have the triggering automatic reaction. That is the thing that happens that triggers us off. That is your partner making a funny face or a comment that you don't like. That is the person not texting back that I was talking about. We have that automatic reaction. Now, the longer we stay, the longer we follow our thoughts, our memories, which plenty of them are not true, the deeper we go into them and ruminate on them, the more they are going to trigger our core beliefs, the more they're going to trigger, let's say I have a core belief that I'm not good enough, that everyone leaves me. If I continue down that road to spiral, that's what's going to happen. It's going to activate my core beliefs. And the more our core beliefs are activated, the more panicky we become, or the more depressed we become, the more we get stuck in this cycle. So, the sooner we can catch that this is happening, the better for us. So, like I say, a great first way for you to do that is to start recording. And then, when you can get to that point where you can notice, there's that thought, there's that image, it is going to leave you in a place, or then how do I reframe that? Then how do I do, what do I do with that? And I do appreciate that. That's where, with me personally, you're looking at the support circles, becoming secure, working with me one to one, or it's where you're thinking about having that conversation with your own therapist. Maybe, depending on where you're at, it might be around your own research, around your own reading, to really begin to discover, how do I reframe these? How do I reprocess these? Like I say, there's plenty of different types of interventions. It's really about finding what works for you, or finding the person that connects with you, that you feel like you can work with, because that's really important to have, when you're doing attachment work, to work with someone where you have that therapeutic alliance with them. That's really key. The next intervention, we're moving over to our emotions. So we've looked at our thoughts, we've looked at the mental reactions. Now we're looking at those feelings, because, like I said, often when you're experiencing emotions, when you've been triggered, it feels like everything is happening right now in this moment. There's no awareness of location or time. It's as if this past trauma is fresh and new, stored in your body rather than just memory. So that might mean that you actually don't have an explicit memory of what this is associated with. That means that you just are reliving it. You know that through the intensity and through the emotions, but you don't always remember exactly why that is. Now, this is when you will do things and say things and act out of character in order to try and relieve yourself from these feelings. So, what I'm going to do here to give you that kind of idea of what you can take away from this is, I just want to give you a few reminders that I feel was really important, a few principles for this kind of intervention. And then I'm going to talk you through, just briefly, an emotion regulation tool that I use a lot with clients, the shift or spiral. So, the first thing I want to say is, I just want to remind you not to underestimate the power of crisis interventions. Sometimes when you're in it and you are in that state of panic, you can't necessarily access your safety state really easily. That means to meditate, that means to pick up your affirmations. If you can do these things, it's incredible. Plenty of people say that they can't access that in that very moment, and then they end up feeling bad and feel like they can't do it. But the reality is, sometimes when we've gone really far out of our window of tolerance of what we can emotionally tolerate, we need crisis interventions. We need to get through that moment. We need to just be with ourselves. We need to know that this is going to pass. We might need to distract ourselves. It is that we just need to do what we need to do in order to stay as aligned as we can, knowing that this will pass. But deal with what you have access to right now, because sometimes, like I said, we don't have that access for those bigger tools, for the things that really help us on our day to day. It's not that they don't work, it's just that in this moment, the state that we're in, we're unable to access that in this moment. Now, the more that you practice your emotion regulation tools and skills when you're not triggered, the more that you are going to be able to use them in this moment. So, that's a really key point here that I really encourage you to write down and take away. You want to be practicing your tools when you're not triggered as well. And then you're going to be rewiring those pathways. And then you're going to be more likely to use them in times when you're stressed and triggered. So, the goal for anxious attachers is to learn the art of self regulation. Yeah, we already want to turn to other people and get other people's help. This is about self regulation. So I'm going to talk you through my shift or spiral. So shift is the acronym, and we have S for spot the thought and the trigger, which hopefully the previous interventions have helped you to be able to do that. So you want to spot the thought or the trigger. H is for halt and pause for 90 seconds. Yeah, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to access a tool. You just want to pause for 90 seconds. 90 seconds will pass. I is to inspect. Take an inner snapshot of your current state. What is happening internally? What are you feeling? What are you being triggered by? Is there an image? Is there a memory going on? You can unmerge here through language. I'm noticing that I'm having a memory of being hurt in the past. I'm noticing that that thought has come up again. F is to free that thought, free yourself through visualization. Imagine yourself taking that deep breath in, you're breathing in love, and then you're breathing out that unhelpful thinking pattern. You're breathing out that memory. You're breathing out that pain. You might imagine this floating away, the pain floating away down a river, on a balloon. There's so many different things that you can do here. You get to really play around with that one. And T is to take the time to ask yourself what you need to be okay in this moment. So when you're feeling big emotion to work through that shift, it's shift or spiral. Even if you just do the S in the early stages, that might be enough to stop you from acting out. So just practice that shifting when you feel big emotions, but also small emotions as well. Like I was saying, you just want to be practicing these on your day to day. This will be one of the ones that you'll often feel like are out of your control and that you can't change. Be really patient with yourself here. There are many different emotion regulation skills. That's the amazing thing, but I guess also the overwhelming thing is finding what works for you. Again, think about what's worked in the past, think about what just speaks to you in general, and get practicing. You really must exercise your secure self like any other muscle. The last intervention that we're going to look at today, that I really hope will help you, is one of my favorites. It's one of my favorite weeks on the course because I think you'll hear why. It's about that real self connection. It's about that really connecting with who you truly are. You know, you hear people talking about your authentic self. This is that. This is coming home to yourself and saying, "This is me." You know, if we've ever put that song on, "This Is Me," and you've danced around the room to it, this is the one for you. Your secure self, your higher self, your best self, your secure self, your authentic self. People with anxious attachment often lack a sense of identity and self worth, especially when you're in relationship with someone else. When you like someone else, you really can lose that. You hear about your happy single bubble, right? Where you feel connected, you feel yourself, and then you meet someone you know and you come out of relationship with yourself. Therefore, one of the foundation steps towards becoming secure is to develop a core sense of self. And again, you might be tired of hearing this, but it's so true. And what I tend to find quite amazing because it really helps you get to know yourself more. There's plenty of methods for developing a secure sense of self, plenty of methods that you can start today. Now, again, I would encourage you, you could pause here, pause me. I'll just read through the different steps and just journal on this. So, answer this: who am I outside of my attachment in relationships? You know, we often base our identity on our relationship status, on what someone else thinks of us. And it becomes your whole self that I am not worthy, I am not good enough. Who are you as a whole person, all different parts of you? So that might be the things that you enjoy. It might be the things that you're good at. It's the things that you're not so good at. Like your strengths, your weaknesses. It's all parts of us. It's the part of you that loves to bake. It's the part of you that doesn't enjoy horror movies, whatever. You might be the complete opposite to that. So really just explore, who am I outside of my attachment and relationships? Because this is what you bring to the table. This is the part of you that people really want to meet, and they deserve to meet, and you deserve to be. If you struggle with this, something to support it is visualization. Visualize yourself being the most secure you. Take a few minutes just to sit, close down your eyes, and visualize what you see. If you're more of an artistic person, draw out what you visualize. Really see all those parts of you. And as you go into your day, you can actually begin to act as if, acting as if you are this most secure person. See yourself become this person, embody what you're visualizing, because that's what we want here. We want to be embodying. Acting as if, to take that step further, actually create an experiment. This is something I talk about all the time. Let's experiment with our tools, experiment with acting as if, experiment with going on a date and saying what we like, experiment with telling our partner, this is the kind of dinner that I want tonight, experiment with saying no to your boss. Let's act as if, and let's experiment and see what happens in comparison to our biggest fears. Because quite often you see that either your biggest fear didn't happen, or you're going to see, even if things didn't go perfect, you coped. It's like I say, pause if you haven't already, go through those different ideas and just see what comes up for you. And guys, there you have it. There are the different interventions that I'm talking you through today. Of course, there are many areas that I've not been able to cover just through the fact that this is a one off workshop. I would love to just give everything right here. It's more about possibility, like I was saying. So let's take a moment to imagine that you are someone embodying your secure self. You know your self worth. You know that you are so much more than your attachment style and your relationship. What does that look like? What do you notice about how you show up in your day to day? What's different for you? And what steps can you take to move forward, to move towards that image today? I truly believe in you. My own experiences really do support me in believing in this work, but also what I see in terms of other people when it comes to change. I see that we can make these shifts. And I really do believe in you. It's about that willingness. It's about that practice. It's about investing in yourself. It's about believing in yourself. Never, ever give up on this journey. That is one of my key messages. Even when you trip, even when you fall, we get back up and we go again. It's an honor that you are here with me today, and I don't take that for granted. It'd be criminal if I didn't give you that final reminder, because it excites me to think that I will get to actually see you and work with you and get to know you through this process even more. So, just to remind you that becoming secure, you can get on the wait list for that course. And it's an intensive, advanced course that takes you through everything we have spoken about today in terms of having me there with you. Of course, we actually do work through individual tools together. It's very experimental. There is education as well, but it is a lot about embodiment, a lot about practice, a lot about what it really does take to become secure, and having that structured, community and coaching with me there so that I can pull out those individual differences for you as well and really consider what is it that you need to support you to make this tool better. We can put our heads together. That's the key thing. And so just adding to the wait list, have a little read through here. If you recognize yourself in some of these signs, add to the wait list. I will be in touch with all of the details of the next round. And there's no catch. It's literally just that, just so that you can learn more about it. But not forgetting those of you that are here that I won't see on Becoming Secure. You are just as much a part of my world. I really, really mean that. Everyone watching this, all of you, I believe that you deserve a healthy, happy love in your lifetime. It is not our fault that we came into adulthood with an anxious attachment. We do have the responsibility now to change that and the possibility to change that. I believe in you. And yeah, thank you for being here. Please do get in touch and let me know what you are taking away from this workshop. Leave a comment, DM me. I really want to know your key takeaway. My final reminder, in case you didn't hear it, I really believe you have your secure self within. I believe that we can become secure, and I believe that we deserve a healthy, happy love in our lifetime.